you've worked in the CSR space for quite a while, and the private sector is quite apolitical when it comes to political discussions. It's almost like intentionally staying away from that, just because of the kind of political economy we run. So given your expertise in localizing SDGs for African businesses, why, in your opinion, do you think the private sector should care about women's leadership in political decision making, and how can stakeholders like CSR-in-Action create a sense of urgency amongst the stakeholders?
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. I was telling you earlier that Bosse is my partner that never was. 11 years ago, when I was starting CSR-in-Action, I remember that she visited me and I said, Bosse, this is what we need to do. And she wasn't sure that she was ready, so I'm glad that she actually has a woman partner now that she's working with to drive this. I also was actually surprised to see, I've never been in a setting like this where I'm like one of the oldest people. I feel ancient. So usually you go to these gatherings and it's targeted at, an older demographic. And, so when I think about women issues, I think about youth as well, because somehow they do go hand in hand. When you're a woman and you're younger, you can imagine how much worse it is. So to your question, the private sector avoids anything that would that would rock their boat in any way. It's a discussion that we constantly have. It's a struggle that we constantly face. When we founded CSR-in-Action 11 years ago now, well, by November 11, we started it with a lot of positivity and belief that all of the funding that we needed, we have in Nigeria, but we're wrong. We do have the funding, but people are afraid to associate with something that they consider disruptive. And that's a challenge that we continue to face because, as you've pointed out, in the political milieu that we're in makes it difficult for people to stand up and speak up for something. But then, on the flip side, when an organization actually stands for something, they actually are respected more, as far as I'm concerned. And that's why you see many big organizations get a lot of flack for certain inactions over the course of the years. So, for instance, the woman issue that we are currently talking about, eventually businesses get forced to do those things, or if it's the matter of the environment with oil and gas or mining firms. Once, many years ago, I spoke to the first managing director of an oil and gas firm in Nigeria. He's white. I met him then in Denmark. And he said to me that the things that we're dealing with now are the issues that they had in the past, and if only they had addressed it then, proactively, they would not be facing that. So you see that there's room for thought leadership. So actually, private sector organizations do not benefit anything from avoiding many of these issues. Even the NSAS protests, they did try to avoid it, but again, when you look at the Western world and the Starbucks of this world, you would see that there's actually benefit because the people who are your actual customers, who will make your business sustainable, are the people that you're fighting for when you speak up against societal ills. And so it's actually a long-term business strategy to think beyond that political office that is leading at that time. So what do we do at CSR-in-Action to tackle this? Now at CSR-in-Action, our focus is on systemic change. We say that we don't picket fences, but we're not afraid to rock the boat, and so we do this intellectually. So we do a lot of writing, we do a lot of advocacy. CSR-in-Action is both an advocacy firm and a for-profit consulting firm, because it got to a point where we got tired of begging for money, really, literally, because you'd find that a business that's willing to pay you, say, 20 million naira to do one thing for them would rather not contribute to a fund, contribute 5 million naira to a fund for a collective good. They would not do that. So we had to be astute, right? We had to be astute in the way that we thought about things, and we had to reimagine things. So when we talk about systemic change, now it's on different levels. So it's beyond the organizational policies or the government's policies. It's also about cultural change. So oftentimes organizations may react positively or seemingly do so to demands for certain things, for inclusion, gender inclusion, disability inclusion, whatever not. But then you find that in practice it's actually totally different. So they want people to respect women more. They say, okay, I'm promoting more women to management, to directorship. And then you find that still the women have to, say, pretend to be married to be respected. You know, wear a ring on your ring finger so they think that you're married. Or you know, and then, you know, women also then had to sort of hide ourselves. And, you know, because of what we faced over the course of the years, even for me, I've had to sort of learn to speak up and say confidently that I'm something that I am. You know, I'm afraid typically to say, okay, I run the most successful sustainability consulting firm because I think, oh, I'm being boastful, because I've been acculturated to think like that, to think that I shouldn't be a certain way, because I go to an event and the event says, oh, don't shout, madam, you're a woman. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry, but not sorry. So those are the things that we tackle. And some of the things that we're doing now is through our Good Citizen initiative, where we're teaching value system reorientation. We're on radio every 5:30 on Inspiration FM, and we're constantly telling people, no, this is not how to think. Another thing that we're doing is our work with rural communities, particularly extractive communities, because we're funded by Ford Foundation. And we are we're working around ways of mainstreaming the conversations that these rural women face. Now, all of us here sort of have an advantage. I mean, we look nice, we dress nice, we're educated, you know, things are much easier. Oftentimes, I always say most of the hurdles that we face are in our head. We can do most things. You know, you can walk into a place, you know what you have the content to say what you have to say, but then there are these women who are stuck in that traditional mold. And unfortunately, the custodians of culture are women. You know, we're very big on the things that we do. If you give us directives to do a certain thing, we want to follow through. And that's what they face in the communities. And so we're working to change that mindset, to let women know that they are possible. Like, anything that they want to be is possible. And we're also using, you know, innovation. So we're creating a docudrama that we believe will positively traumatize people into action. And we're not just sticking with the women. We're creating this because we think that, we know that a lot of the changes that these women need would come from us in the urban areas. The decision makers are not necessarily in those villages. And so we want to create something that will not only help them, but that would be viewed, you know, not just across the country, but could be viewed across the world. And we're also creating a radio drama to address that as well, to get them to start thinking differently and to get us outside of those rural communities to start thinking about how we could support them. We need to understand the challenges. We need to understand that governance really starts from the local government areas, the councillors, local government chairpersons, and we need to address those people, because the quality of people who come from there, the people who typically grow through the ranks and become even, to become senators, to become governors and all of that, and if they're not thinking right, both men and women, because I don't think that women can solve this alone. Men are happy and are comfortable in the situation that they're in, and if we don't work on messaging that is inclusive, that cause men to see why they should support this drive, then I think that would make our jobs even harder for ourselves.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, although we're not where we need to be, but women are rising to top leadership positions across business and the private sector. So how can and why should this demography mobilize for increased women's representation and leadership in political decision making? The reason I ask is, so just tying that back into what, I mean, to Yama's comment and Fadi's comment as well, you know, about how the space is even so closed up for the women in tech, and how you said 95% of finance is controlled by men, right? But even within the, let me say, the 5% or the 1% that we have, understanding the peculiarity of the systemic issues that we face, how can women then start thinking about, you know, sort of like my sister's keeper? So to have that mindset and start mobilizing themselves, how would you approach it from a sustainability angle?
You know, some points have been made as to why it's important that we should be involved in this discourse, because, you know, we have resources that could aid the cause. You have to realize that the majority of our population, though, is the grassroots. So even if you mobilized all of us to come out to vote, by the time they go to, the rural communities and all of those places and galvanize the numbers, then we have nothing to show for it. So so if you think about the fact that over 40% of population lives below the poverty line, then you see what we're talking about. There's a reason why a lot of the politicians go to the grassroots to give them the 2K that she talked about. Jesus, if you're a Christian, Jesus was popular because he used 2 bread and 5 fish to feed how many thousand, right? So people were happy. They ate for free. But he was unpopular because he also preached sustainability, because the Jews thought he was coming to redeem them, to save them immediately. But he was talking about behavioral change that they weren't ready for. So it's like that. So it addresses the question that you asked. The things that we want to do will take time. It would not happen immediately, but we can be strategic about the things that we do. And, I was having a discussion recently with someone, and he says, you know what, independent candidacy would evidently help. I know that at some point it was raised in the NAS. I don't know what happened with that. But, by the time, even if we wanted to go that route, you would realize that you would need at least 20% from local governments or 2% at least to sign from each local government to actually endorse you. So you still need those people. You still need the numbers that we're talking about to get you in where you need to get yourself. When we talk about women supporting women, again, firstly, I think that women need to be giving a new vision. If we think about how most women think, what you've said about 50% women representation in your business is something that I've tried before, and it didn't work. It's very hard. I did manage to recruit some women, but in no time they fell off the radar. They couldn't deal with, running a business, being in a high-powered business is not easy, but, it's something that has to be done. Oftentimes, I'm not sleeping more than a few hours a week sometimes to be able to do what I need to do, right? But that's also why we need women in positions of authority. Data has proven that, when you have women in power, we come with a different skill set than men. And we manage through relational or relationship management. So our style is different. It's not about sending down edicts like my brother Trump. It's more like, we want to engage, we want to know how people feel. And in today's world, it's not perceived to be strength to be like that, but it's changing as well. Because that's what you need, again, for sustainability. If you want your business to grow in the long term, you have to have people that believe in your vision and people that you treat right, because even if they don't say it, everybody wants to be treated right. Everybody wants to know that they have the opportunity for feedback, which is why I always say to people, I'd rather any day be a big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a large pond, like in an ocean, So I think that if we don't stop thinking about just being recognized as, change makers or being at the fore of it, because what has happened is you then have a small crop of women who are recognized for their leadership and they're basking in the glory of it. And it shouldn't be like that. It's actually harder when you are in that space by yourself. It's much, much harder. And so whilst you have a network like ElectHer, there needs to be opportunity for more partnerships to educate women, to reorientate women, to, as I said, give us a new vision, the things that we need to work towards, because currently we think that our role is limited to certain domesticated roles, which is not a bad thing, because I think that most women have the innate ability to do these things. If you give us a little thing like an egg, creates beautiful human beings like yourself. We incubate life, and life in every possible way, not just human life, but everything that we give, we cause to thrive. And it's a natural ability to do so. But again, oftentimes because we have been acculturated to think a certain way, we don't know when it's time to pull other women up. But it's changing. I can say for sure that within organizations, it's not the way that it was when I first started. I can assure you that now the business that I get from businesses is actually given to me by women. I actually am happy when I see a woman leader to talk to, because I know that she will give me that business because she thinks I can do the job, not because she thinks that I'm her body or that, you know, she wants something from me. So that's why we need more women in positions of authority, and that's why we need to continue to push for businesses to enact those policies that would support women's growth. And that's why, you know, you find that businesses like Sterling Bank with their One Woman initiative, or the W initiative of the Access Bank, you would see that many of these banks actually have women in top leadership positions, because you then start thinking about things like a creche. Because yes, I want to be a high-powered woman, but where do I put my infant if, you know, if I have a baby? In the past, I would not see women come to a conference like this with a pregnancy. It used to be unusual. When I would be pregnant, I have 4 children, and I know that over the years, I've actually hidden my pregnancies on occasion, yes, because I had a negative experience when early on, I think it was my first or my second, I actually went for a meeting, and the man said to me, madam, you should be resting, putting your feet up. Why are you moving up and down the place? I'm like, I'm pregnant, not sick. You understand? So, but when you have more women in decision making, then we have representation, then we're able to get even more benefits for sustained development, really.
Thank you. I think that was very important to note. So early in the conversation, or I think the previous session, you know, I think that was AGS Tribe's session, when just talking about some of the peculiar challenges they were facing. You'd realize that people were so active because there were relatable challenges, and that's because there were also common challenges. People could relate to them. And so I just wanted to buttress that, you know, that the more we have women in this space, the more we open up the space for more women, the more we create safe spaces and productive and progressive spaces for much more women as well. So, I mean, definitely. Yeah.
The countries that fared better were women-led.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's clear that when you have, even in the Fortune 500 companies, when you see the organizations that are led by women, they perform better. The banks here that have women, chairpersons, you can see, growth in their performance.
Human-centric approach to decision making.
There's a difference. So
Absolutely.
there is actually, I think that's what we need to do more. When coming back to you at ElectHer, I think you just need to give people a vision why they need to support this. People need to know why. People don't tend to understand why you're doing so, and that's why I always say, it can be to our detriment to be confrontational, right? It's better to give the people reason why.
Absolutely.
And that's why the NSAS movement worked, because it was organic. People bought into that vision. They didn't think that they were being sold anything. It was what they wanted to do because the messaging resonated with them.
Part of your service offering under the CSR-in-Action is matching small, micro and medium enterprises with funders. So how can female candidates position themselves to access multi-channel funding? And then secondly is, ahead of 2023, what are your expectations and what do you think can critically change?
Okay, so when we started CSR-in-Action, that was what we wanted to do. That didn't quite work out as we expected it to work out, and we started following the money, as I said earlier, because we saw that we had a vision that seemed to be a soul vision. It didn't seem like we had a lot of people supporting that vision of wanting to support others, and like you just pointed out, a lot of the things that we do as women, we pursue as passion projects, and we don't oftentimes want to talk about money. You have to be able to plug into that. Okay. You can't come with your own singular vision, right? And say, I want you to do this. No. You should have done your research to find out exactly what they're looking for. And that way they're happy to support what you're doing. So it's the same for business. You have to do that. And then, I think that for women in general, I think that now is our time. I think women really, really, really need to step up to the plate. Personally, I know that I would not do well in politics. I'm much too forthright. I will go and insult my constituents, and then they'll be like, look at this one. I'll go and tell them the truth. Nigerian youth are this. I say, hey, madam, please excuse us, But when I was asked to join an initiative, Leaf Initiative, that was founded by Shimite Bello. She used to be Shimite Cartoon. a woman who's keenly interested in women affairs and in politics, because right now she's heading one of the SME agencies in Delta State. When she approached me to say, do you want to be a part of a 35 to 50-year-old initiative, that would have equal representation of men and women? I think it's 50-50 of each. I said yes, because, I saw a vision where I didn't necessarily have to vie for office. I didn't have to run for office. But I realized that there are other opportunities in governance. It doesn't have to, I could be a political appointee. I could be a contractor. Why shouldn't I be the person who gets the 5 billion naira roads contract? Why can't I be that person? Does he have to be a man? No, I can do it. I've proven over the years that I'm capable. So I'm open to those opportunities. So I think that, that's what we need to do more. And we need to show more women in that space. And that's one of the things that Lead Initiative does. It opens us up to women and other leadership. So in some cases, okay, we want to show why women need to be there, need to be represented, and they bring women councillors and the like. So I think that you should be thinking of funding one of those who want to run for office, one of the women who want to run for office under the Lead Initiative, because as the SDGs roundup, Goal 17 is partnership for the goals, and I don't think that a lot of progress can be made if people continue to work in silos.